What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Marvel Buddies podcast. It's just me this time, but I am doing an interesting character, as you guys might be able to see from the form. I've brought you guys Daredevil this week. Now, he is a bit of an interesting character, simply because he's been around since the 60s, since 1964, and has not, since his debut back in 1964, ever died. He's been around for how many years is that? 70-ish years, give or take, a little bit less. Um, and not once has he actually canonically died. He has faked his death a couple times, but he's never actually died and like confirmed the body died kind of thing. Uh, he is also known as the Man Without Fear, or the Devil of Hell's Kitchen, and he is a very street level kind of villain, very similar to that of Spider-Man, with a whole sense of a secret identity. One second. But regarding Daredevil, um, he's a very gritty character. He's not a character that you would typically see as child friendly. He is there. His comics are not, apart from the first couple of ones that were written by Stan Lee, um, over the years have not been very child friendly, unlike the Fantastic Four or Spider-Man. Even though Spider-Man has gotten a bit gritty at times, these are characters that are canonically more gritty, right? Or the Daredevil at least, right? And the Defenders team. And he was originally written back in 1964, April of 1964, by Stan Lee and Bill Everett. So he wasn't a Stan Lee and Steve Kirby creation. Bill Everett actually wrote him, and this was the debut comic that he was in. And as you can see, for those that are aware of the Netflix show with Daredevil, the one where he's in all red, clearly it's a different look on him. Also, again, for those who are interested in Daredevil, I will do my best not to reference anything that he's in currently. However, I will just leave a spoiler alert before I go on. I know that a couple of you may have seen some information, but for those that are still interested, I will obviously count you down before. But yeah, you start off the comic here, his first ever comic, at Fogwell's gym. Pretty much, right? You're looking up on the entrance of the gym. It's located on the lower west side, and that's where it begins. Fogwell's gym, kind of like a rundown little place, right? And you got these guys. They're gambling, right? It's in a dingy room. They're playing poker, and this guy's like, "Come on, Porky, we haven't got all day." And Porky over here is like, "Keep your shirt on. Don't rush for anyone." And he's like, "Who do you think you're kidding?" We know when the fixer snaps his finger, we all hop in. We all hop if we want to stay healthy, right? And so immediately this fixer character is introduced, and he's kind of like the big scary guy, right? And so this other guy here that they're playing poker is like, "Sam's right. Anyhow, I'm Butch. Let's knock off for a while until, hey, what's that noise?" And there's a creak, and they all turn. And he's like, "For the love of Pete, what do you call that?" And it's Daredevil, right? And he's like, "You're in the wrong place, Buster. We don't use costume wrestlers here. I've seen nutty get-ups, but that one takes the cake." And he's like, "But look at his build. Hang around, fella. Maybe the fixer can use you." He's like, "That guy there, he looking for trouble. The fixer won't like that, right?" And he's like, "I intend to do just that. Wait for the fixer, right?" And he's like, "He must be some kind of nut, right? Like, who's this guy dressed in, you know, ketchup and mustard," as they put it in where he showed up, and they're getting ready to beat him up, right? And so here, Porky, I guess, is their since it's a gym, Fogwell's gym, Porky, I guess, is their big boxer, and he's trying to go up to him, and Daredevil easily, like, witcha, kicks him in the like leg, and he goes flying over. Um, he calls him a fatso. It's funny, and then he kind of twirls him around, like spins him and whatnot, and yeah, he launches him into the group of incoming people, I guess, and right there, once he sees that one of them motions to grab a gun, he throws his billy club. which is the actual name of his quote unquote weapon. Um, and it smacks the gun out of his hand, and you know he senses the other. I guess his name was Porky, diving for him. He jumps out of the way. The other guy throws a chair, and he swings out of the way. And he's like, surround them. He can't get us all at once, and that's exactly what he does. He swings and hits all of them, knocking them out one by one. And here they are. It's like, okay, Mister, we've had it now. Who are you and what do you want? It ain't possible. No one can fight like that. He must do it with mirrors. He's like, now that playtime's over, I'll hang around until I find the fixer. As for who I am, you can call me Daredevil, right? And then we get hit with this like panel. It's like Daredevil, a brand new name in the world of superheroes, but one which is destined to reach the very heights of glory. For Daredevil has a special type of power, such as no adventurer has ever had before. To learn what it is, we go back a few years back to the origin of the man called Daredevil. So, this one does indeed cover his origin story. However, the original origin story and the origin story that most of you guys are aware of are very different. In this one, and you'll see in this iteration of Daredevil, he's kind of mutated, I guess. Whereas typically in um comics or in shows, there's an important figure in his life, which you'll see later. Um, some call him Stick, right? And Stick is the one that teaches him, right? He trains him, brings him on as a mentor. But it all just depends on, again, your when you're reading it, right? If it predates Stick, then like when Daredevil's you're reading Daredevil. If it predates Stick, obviously, you're gonna have a different iteration of the comic, a different viewing of the comic, right? So here he is. It's the year's 1950, and the prize fighter known as Battling Murdoch talks to his 8-year-old son Matthew, and he's like, I don't want, Matthew's telling him, he's like, I don't want to study, and he's like, no, Matt, you'll do it now. You'll study every chance you get. You hear? He's like, I promised your mother before she died that I wouldn't let you grow up to be an uneducated pug like me. You're going to amount to something, right? And he's like, but Dad, I want to be like you, Dad. I'm the proudest of you. You're the greatest, and I don't say that. I'm past my prime. I've got no future. Nothing I can do but become a punching bag for younger men, right? And so you find out that battling Murdoch here, it was an old boxer. His name is Jack, battling Jack, um, or battling Jack Murdoch, right? And he really pushes Matt to become a studious kind of person and be successful in life. He doesn't want Matt to become a boxer or a fighter like um himself, like Jack, right? And so, Matt does his best to live up to his father's dream. He becomes a top student in his class forsaking all sports and athletic activities, although his heart aches for the thrills of the baseball diamond and the gridiron, I guess that's the word. And so here he is watching people play football, and he's like, I could do that. Right? And he's like, I just can't go against my father's wishes. I've got to be the son he wants me to be. You hear all the kids playing outside, and he sees them. He's like, if only I could. They're Indian wrestling. If only I could go down and join them. And then they're all calling him. They're all making fun of him, right? All the kids make fun of him, and the name that they call him is Daredevil. He's like, well, if it ain't old Daredevil himself, hi Daredevil, hi Daredevil, be sure you don't tire yourself running all those heavy pages in your school books, right? And he kind of gets upset because he thinks they all think of him as like a little like I don't know if this is TOS on Twitch, so I'm going to not say that, but you like a little weakling, right? And so he goes back to picking up the books and like I'm as strong as them and rugged as them, and I'll prove it, right? And he starts hitting the gym, right? So he goes to his dad's gym and he kind of hits the little punching bag, the little like thing. He knocks it clean off, and he's like, he puts it back, and he's like, I'm, I, why don't I just work out just to keep in shape? And that's what he does, right? He lifts barbells, he starts skipping ropes, he pulls the cable tower, he hits the bike, the rower, the boxing bag, and no matter how hard he trains, the determined teenager never forgets the goal he set for him. So he does still train. However, he also studies really hard. He's like, Matt, I know how tough it's been for you, and while the other kids are out playing and having a good time, but the day will come when you'll thank me, boy. You're just gonna amount to something, just the way your mother would have wanted you to. But for all the hard work Maddie's putting in, unfortunately for Jack, he hasn't been able to land a job, and he's not getting any fights because no one wants to fight an older dude, right? No, he's getting to that point in his life where he's kind of old and whatnot. No one really wants to fight old Jack Murdoch, right? Old battling Jack. So he goes to this one guy and he makes, he asks him, is like, I need a fight. Do you know anyone that can swing me up? He's like, look, Murdoch, you're washed up, right? The only guy I know who's been able to who can manage a has-been like you is the Fixer. And he's like, the Fixer, I swear to never, talk to this guy, stay clear. This guy has a reputation. He's like, but I have no choice. I have to get a fight for Matthew. And so they meet the Fixer. He's like, 10 years ago, you kicked me out of your dressing room, but I knew you'd come around sooner or later. Right? And here he is, the Fixer, right? That big, scary man that you snap and everyone comes to. Right? So he's like, sure, I'll get some fights, and you just won't have to take a dive either, just because I'm a really a soft-hearted fool. Just sign this contract. And he goes and signs the contract. And so, he feels all good because he just signed this new contract, and he's got the money to be able to pay for Matt's schooling. And so he goes home to his apartment and he's like, Matt, wait till I tell your mother. He's like, oh, Matt's not here. But as fate would have it, right, while Jack is coming home from that lucrative deal that he just made, Matt sees this guy out on the street, right? And he's like, oh man, I need to help that old blind man cross the street. And he's like, hey, mister, can I give you a hand? And he goes and he's like, it didn't seem like he heard me. He might be deaf too. And he's like, wait, there's a car turning the corner towards him, and this is a Ajax Atomic Labs radioactive material van that's like lugging radioactive material. And it's like, they can't slam the brakes. It's like the brakes won't stop. So Matt, dives through cars and pushes the old guy out of the way, saving him. But what ends up happening is the truck kind of tips over, and a lot of that radioactive acid lands on his face. And so he's like, he saved that man's life. It's the most heroic act I've seen, but its cylinder fell from the truck. It struck his face. Is it radioactive? And he's like, don't just stand there. Someone call the ambulance. And here he is, right at the hospital. The nurse is telling him, your son is very brave. You have to be brave too for the days coming ahead. And he's like, if only it had happened to me instead of him. If only I had been there. And he's like, don't worry, Dad. It could have been worse. Even if I do lose my sight, at least I'm still alive. And he's really optimistic about this, right? And he's blind. He's like, good news, Matt. Your doctor says that there's an operation that might be able to restore your sight in a few years, once the tissues have healed. And he's like, and Matt's like, that's great, and I'll keep, working to be able to get that book. I'll read those books in Braille to get that diploma, right? And while he does that, he also manages to hit the gym. Now, this is kind of where we divert in the story, right? Um, so typically, in real life, I don't think a blind man would be able to hit the gym the way Matt is here, right? Knowing positionings and whatnot. And so in the comics, or at least in later issues, that like later issue, you'll see that, and I'll talk about it, but you see that Matt struggles to hit the gym, right? He can't see it. So what he can't see, he can't use, right? So that's when Stick comes and trains him. However, in this version of it, you end up seeing that he's like, it's as though nature made all my senses more powerful, right? I wonder, could the radioactive elements which hit my eyes have done anything to increase my powers, right? And he's like, but whatever the explanation is, it's a supremely confident, self-assured Matt who finally graduates from high school and is eagerly accepted by the director of administrations of State College, where you find him sharing a dormitory room with his buddy Franklin, or Foggy Nelson, right? And this is important because Foggy is actually a really important figure in Matt's life. The two of them end up running Nelson and Murdoch, which is a lawyering company, as you guys will later see. And eventually in the Netflix TV show, if you guys haven't seen it, spoilers, I'll count you down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. But it eventually does become Nelson and Murdoch and Page, for Karen Page, who you guys will also meet later. Um, but he does end up running a bunch of different deals. He ends up operating outside of state at times, right? He ends up working for different law firms, and it's just how he's written. But the famous Daredevil law firm is, or at least Matthew Murdoch law firm is Nelson and Murdoch, right? And so here's Foggy Nelson. He's like, "Oh, Matt, you old hound, how do you do it? I study like a demon, but you just breeze through all the courses with all the top grades." He's like, "Well, I studied when I was younger, so it's easier to me now, right?" And He's like, it wouldn't be surprised if that radiation I absorbed had something to do with that too, right? And he's like, all my senses are now razor sharp, right? So he starts, they talk about all the different elements or senses, I guess, that he has, and he's like, my hearing, I can tell if someone's in a room, but just by hearing the heartbeat, right? I can recognize a smell by like a hair tonic in men or perfume in women, right? And my fingers are so sensitive, I can tell how many bullets are in a gun just by feeling the weight of the barrel, right? And my taste has become so developed, I can taste exactly how many grains of salt are on a piece of pretzel, right? And he's like, but most important, his new ability is in the form of a built-in radar, right? Or echolocation, if you guys have seen the new thing. Yeah. But it seems to have been developed. It enables me to walk anywhere safely without bumping into anything. And he's like ping, and he's walking through. And he's like, a lot of people helping. He's like, hey son, you want to help cross the street? No thanks, I can make it. He's like, little does he suspect I can cross more safely than he can, for I have every one of my remaining senses working at absolute peak capacity, right? And while um that's going on, the career of battling Murdoch takes a surprising turn. He's like, Murdoch knocks out Sims in the ninth. Kid Murdoch versus Pedro, whatever, right? Murdoch knocked in 12th knockout, right? So, they're he's like, here's your dough, Murdoch, keep it up, and you might become champ someday. He's like, I can't believe it, Fixer. All seems like a miracle, right? Once Battling Jack takes his pay and heads out, you know, here's the Fixer, and he's like, wait till the old fool finds out that all his fights were setups and you paid his opponents to take dives. He's like, sure, I did it to give Murdoch a build up, right? You'll build him up and then you get crowds to come in, but he'll learn the facts of life in its next fight, that it's where I get him to take the count, right, or take a dive, right? So pretty much the Fixer has been building Battling Jack up, right? He wants him to have a reputation as this big prime fighter, right? So that in his next fight he can you know when it comes to match fixing, right? When everyone kind of throws their money in the pot and they all say Battling Jack's gonna win, right? If XYZ fighter is the one that ends up winning, right? The Fixer will take the pot, right? Or whoever votes on the other guy will take the pot, right? Because all the money went, to Battling Jack, right? So that's the idea. The idea is that the Fixer wants to build Battling Jack up to be this fighter, and then take a dive so that this guy can bring him in the money, right? But before the fight, Foggy comes up and he's like, "Hey Matt, wait up! I want to read the sports headlines about your dad." And Matt already knows it's Foggy, and he's like, I already got tickets, Foggy, one for both of us, right? And he's like, Kid Murdoch to face Davis, #2 contender, right? And so and if you guys can see, it's at the Garden. This is at MSG, Madison Square Garden. And so the two here's Battling Jack, and he's like, the Fixer said I have to take a dive in the first round, and he's like, and here's a commentator. It's like, in this corner, the middle-aged sensation Battling Murdoch, right? And the two of them are fighting. He's like, but my boy's here, right? Jack has a sense of pride because Matthew and Foggy, specifically Matthew, is watching him take the fight. So he's like, my boy's here. And he's rooting for his dad, and I've always trained him to do his best, and I can't disappoint him now. And the Fixer's like, Murdoch, you fool, what are you doing? You got to take it easy. If you're trying to double cross me, you'll live to regret it. You're supposed to take a dive. Now dive, right? And here's Foggy. He's like, he's winning, Matt. Your dad's pulverizing him. He's like, I know I can follow the fight perfectly by hearing the sound of each footstep and blow, right? And Battling Jack is knocking this guy out, #2, and he's like, it's my chance, maybe the last chance to do something to make my son proud of me. I'm not gonna fail him. I'm gonna win. You hear me? I'm gonna win. And he, says it out loud, and he beats the crap out of him. And Battling Jack wins, right? It's like, call it a miracle, call it pure willpower, sheer determination. Um, you know, but a few seconds later, he's like, the winner, Battling Murdoch, right? And here they are, and he's like, the Fixer's kind of accountant, I guess. I don't know what the fuck to call him, but he's kind of like upset watching them, and he's like, "You did it, Dad. You proved that nothing's impossible. A man has the courage. If a man has the courage, if a man's not afraid." He's like, I wanted you to be proud of me, Matt. And my son, right? And the Fixer's pissed, right? He's like, "No one double crosses the Fixer. You know what to do, Slade." And then here Slade is like, yeah, I do. And when Battle and Jack leaves, he's like, no matter what the Fixer does, I won't care. My son is proud of me. Nothing can ever change that now. Bam! There's a gunshot, right? And within seconds, it's Battle and Murdoch. You won the big fight tonight. The police arrive, and he's like, someone must have been awfully sore about the victory, right? Because Battle and Jack won. It's like, who could have done it, right? And Matt is, grieving. Foggy's with him. He's like, you got to snap out of it, Matt. Pull yourself together. That's what your dad would have wanted. We'll be graduating soon, and my dad's setting up a law firm, right, for me. I want you to be my partner. And so Matt graduates, right? He's like, I'm especially proud. As valedictorian, if I'm not mistaken. He's like, I'm especially proud to congratulate you for being chosen as class valedictorian. You've been chosen that an alert mind and a strong will can conquer any obstacle. He's like, thank you, sir. And then here it is, Nelson and Murdoch, attorneys at law, their law firms together. And he's like, we're in business with your brains and my dad's money. Nothing can stop us. And he's like, look at the secretary I hired. And it's good old Miss Karen Page, obviously showing off in her 60s style. She looks a little different in uh, the later issues. This is what she looks like. It's played by Deborah Ann Wall in the TV show. Uh, this is a more modern version of Karen Page with her hair down. Let's see if I can find a good one. Here is, oh shit, wrong thing. Hold on, let's see. It's display capture. Here is them. Eventually, they do. Matt and her end up hooking up or whatnot. Oops. But uh, but yeah, it's Karen is a really important figure in Matt's life, and yeah, um, she's an important figure in Matt's life, and Foggy's as well. But yeah, they hire her as their secretary, right? And he's like, I'll never be able to concentrate on my dad's law work with my, in his head, right? Obviously, a blind man can't see what Karen Page looks like, but he's like, in his head, he's more concerned over his father's death rather than the law firm, right? And so he has to avenge it without breaking the promise that he made to his dad of never fighting. And so Matt Murdock is like, I know what I can do, right? I, as Matt Murdock, won't fight, but um, I'll see to it that Matt Murdock never fights, but someone different. All I need are some old shirts and stitch and which I could stitch together, and he does, and he starts stitching up his yellow shirts. And in a couple hours there, whenever I don this costume, I'll no longer be Matt Murdock, but I'll go by a new name, the ones that those neighbor kids call me, and it's like Daredevil. That'll be the perfect name for me. And so he puts on the outfit and the big D, like vest kind of thing, and then he ends up using a cane, which can double as a weapon, right? The cane will both serve as his weapon and as like a secret identity for him, right? Which has a flexible handle and a hinge and whatnot, right? So that I'll hinge it in the middle, design a sheath for it. It'll be the perfect all-purpose weapon, and he ends up kind of training with it a little bit. Um, and he's like, now where do I begin? And he's kind of going out trying to figure out where um the Fixer is, right? He's like, Dad's manager was the man named the Fixer. I have a hunch he deserves that name. And so he's walking down the alley and he heads to Fogwell's gym, where we continue to the point where we left off before the kind of like the little back in time thing. And so he's like, now do you take me to the Fixer, or, and he's like, or nothing, we just had it, fella. We'll hang around here, he'll be here any minute. And he's like, and the Fixer walks in and he's like, so someone's been asking for me, what do you want? And he's like, oh, it looks like trouble, right? Want we should lean on him a little. Um, and so he's like, my associates don't seem to like your looks, mister. You better talk fast. And he's like, correction, Fixer. You're the one who's going to be talking. It's like, I want to know what arrangement you had with Battle and Murdoch. And it's like, Battle and Murdoch? What's it to you? Right? It ain't healthy to mention him around here. And he's like, he must know something, boss. I'll take care of him. Right? And so he kind of hears that this guy's pulling out a gun from his pocket. So with that audio, he kind of reacts and he throws the cane at him, having him drop the gun, and then um, I guess catching it. And then all of them start to pull out guns from different places, and he, listening to them, starts reacting and fighting them and sweeping the legs. He's like, now let's all settle down and for a nice talk, unless you'd rather another session with me. He's like, look, he's like, quiet. I'll handle this. I'm still the boss. He's like, Mister, whatever you are, you're in a mess of trouble with you're not getting away with coming here and roughing us up. We got lost to protect innocent people. Sam, call the cops, right? And he throws the billy club, or I guess it's the cane at that point, at the phone, knocking him out, or knocking his like the phone out of his hands. He's like, Fixer, I suspect you were responsible for the death of Battling Murdoch. Why don't you confess now and save us all a lot of trouble? And Fixer's like, you're nuts. I have nothing to do with it. I got a perfect alibi. But what you guys end up finding out is that Matt has another kind of trick up his sleeve, and that's pulse rate, right? So the 60s were a different time, but elevated pulse rate could be linked to that of lying, right? Because when you lie, your heart rate goes up. So, although there are ways of training so that you can lie without increasing your heart rate, so you can lie on lie detectors, making it very unreliable. However, right? Unfortunate for him, I don't think that the what the fuck is his name? The Fixer. I don't think that the Fixer is very aware of that, and so he's like, maybe you do have an alibi, and maybe it wasn't you that squeezed the trigger, but you did give the order, didn't you? And he's like, no, 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 stay back, stop him, you guys, don't let him get to me. And here is Slade, the guy that actually shot Battle and Jack, and he's like, he knows too much. He knows about the murder. I can't take any chances, and he pushes him out the window. Right? Matt can't react to it in time because he's kind of pushing towards Slade, the Fixer, and Slade kind of comes up behind him and pushes him out. So he flies out the window. He's too late to react, but he does end up using his senses to hear the flag on a flagpole kind of whooshing. So he ends up taking his cane and snatching onto the side of the flagpole before flinging himself back up and then kicking in Slade in the back of the head. And while all of this is going down, Foggy's trying to see Matt, and he's like, "Where are you?" And he's like, "Oh, thought I'd come in and see if you needed anything." He's like, "Oh, Matt's gone." He's like, "I'll go up to the office. Maybe he's in the office." And he goes to Karen. He's like, "Hey, today's your day off." He's like, "I know, Mr. Nelson, but I'm a stranger in New York and I had no one to visit, so I thought I'd tidy up the office. Well, I had the chance." He's like, "Is Mr. Murdoch with you?" He's like, "No, matter of fact, I'd hope he'd be here. I don't like him wandering around all alone." He's like, "I understand. What a pity such a handsome man is so handicapped, right?" And poor Foggy, he's like, "Don't let his blindness fool you. He's still the smartest, most capable, courageous fellow I know. He doesn't seem to mind not seeing." And he's like, "There's something about him that makes a girl want to take him in." And she's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, Mr. Nelson. I didn't mean to speak that way. Um, it's just that he seems like someone, someone needs to look after him, right?" She kind of pities him. Um, but he's like, "Out of the way, all of you. I'm only interested in Slade and the Fixer." He's like, "Boy, you don't have to tell me twice." And they all kind of run off. And he's like, "Now, you two, I've learned what you wanted. Slade actually did the shooting, but you gave the order." And he's like, "What good will it do? You can't prove it." And he's like, "Wait, yeah, where's your evidence?" And this is when he kind of hits you with the third superpower, which is being really fucking good at lying. And he's like, "I have a miniature tape recorder here in my billy club, and I'll tell the police all they need to know." And so the Fixer kind of pulls the carpet from under him, literally, and knocks him out. And the two of them start running, and he kind of slams his hand in, and it kind of like hurts, I guess. He says he wrenched it, right? So he's kind of holding his hand as he moves, kind of. But he's chasing the Fixer, right? And the thing with the Fixer is that he's smoking this big cigar. So the cigar leaves a trail of smoke that he can smell, right? And tobacco is a very clear scent. So while they head down to the street, he kind of changes back into his getup, his like normal civvy uniform, right? And he's just kind of walking around, following the scent of the cigarette or the cigar. And they're heading down and looking away, and they go down a subway grade, right? Down like the stairs of the subway, and right then and there he kind of ditches the civilian outfits and changes back into the Daredevil costume. He's like, "Were you guys going anywhere?" And he's like, "It's him. It's not possible." He's like, "Separate. He can't get us both." And he's like, "I was afraid they'd try that." So he ends up throwing his billy club at Slade, knocking him out, right? Um, so he, throws the club at Slade, and he's like, "Good, he's tackling Slade. That means I'll escape." And Fixer tries to make a run for it, right? So Slade, falls, and then this is where they hit you with those like 60s goofy ass kind of. Hold on, I have a perfect sound on my soundboard for this. It should be, yeah, that one. It hits you with one of those goofy ass like Tom and Jerry vibes, and so he turns over the trash can and starts rolling on it. Like what practicality is that? But it ends up working because it knocks out the Fixer. And he's like, "Oh, my heart can't breathe." Oh, and he kind of like, panic stricken. His heart ceases to beat. And so he's like, "No heartbeat. It seems like the heart attack will save the state of expense of a trial." He's like, "What's going on?" He's like, "Transit police just what the doctor ordered, and so is this incoming train." He's like, "Follow me, boys. I've got a little job for you." And he ends up latching onto the train and heading towards the Fixer or to Slade. And he's like, "Don't you know enough to stay where I left you?" And he kind of launches on him. He's like, "For my last wife," he's like, "The Fixer just told us everything, Slade. He's innocent. You're um, Murdoch's murder. It's like that dirty crumb. He's not gonna wiggle out of this. He's as guilty as I am. I only pulled the trigger, but he gave the orders." He's like, "Hear enough, boys?" And he's like, "We sure did. Wait, who are you?" And he's like, "My name's Daredevil. Remember it. You'll be hearing it again. I promise." And he kind of turns over the turnstile or whatever. And he comes back and he's like, Matt, say I was worried about you. Where you've been, fella?" He's like, "I just out for a walk, Foggy. I'd have been here sooner. But as you know, I can't get around too fast, right?" I was like, "We just had a call, Mr. Murdoch. An accused murderer named Slade. He wanted to know if we'd defend him, right?" So Slade wanted Matthew to defend him. He's like, "But I turned him down from the police report. I was convinced he was guilty. Hope you don't mind that." And he's like, "Mind?" He's like, "No, not at all. Not one bit. Not one single bit." And he's like, "Dad, wherever you are, hoping you're resting easier." And it gives a shadow of Matt and Daredevil in the back. And then they talk about the ending, the little conclusion. And don't wait a minute. Think of Daredevil, and back in the day in the 60s, they asked you to send like fan mail over to you know, Stan Lee, which was on third floor, 655 Madison Avenue. Actually, I kind of want to see if that's still up. What was it? Actually, I shouldn't. Not on stream, but if you guys want to look it up, I'm sure that it's probably a big building, and I've never actually, funny enough, I've lived in New York for so long, but I've never actually been to Stan Lee's old room back in Madison Square or Madison Avenue, right? But anyway, that's beyond the point because I do want to talk about a different comic here. So that run of Daredevil that we just saw here, this one back in Daredevil #1 back in 1964, runs for a good amount of issues, guys. It runs for about like 3-ish hundred issues or so. I think I want to say maybe a little more. But this is in the same comic run, right? So, you have like, so if you consider each comic book a chapter in a regular book, it would be a 300 chapter book, right? And so the chapters or issues of the comic, right? Um, so and then the installment would be the book, the big full story of Daredevil, right? And so this is issue number 181, and this is an important part in Matt Murdock's life. At this point now, Stan Lee and who was it that was writing it with him? Bill Everett, yeah. Stan Lee and Bill Everett aren't writing him anymore. Now it's actually Frank Miller, who has written so many good comics. If you guys are interested in comics, I highly recommend anything that Frank Miller does. He is a really good writer. He did Batman, and then he did Daredevil. I think he's done a couple other characters, but he's a really good comic writer, and I think he just recently retired. I think he's like 60 something, or he might still be writing, but he might be like, on the verge of like not writing. But anyway, he wrote the comics, picked it up pretty much right after Stan Lee kind of left, and so he wrote this one, which is Daredevil #181. It came out April 1st of 1982, right? And this is a really pivotal moment in Daredevil's life. If you can see here, it says Bullseye versus Elektra. One wins, one dies, right? Bullseye is Daredevil's biggest nemesis, right? His biggest rival. A lot of people say it's the Kingpin. A lot of people say it's the Punisher. Bullseye is pretty much up there, top three, right? Because Bullseye ends up working for the Kingpin, but Bullseye has this mentality of I want to kill the Daredevil, right? I want to kill him for all of the stuff that he's done to me, all the prisons that he's put me in. I want to kill him, right? Um, Whereas the Punisher is an anti-hero and just sees him as like someone that's gotten away with his, plans of taking out all these mafia bosses or crime bosses, and the Kingpin wants him because he ruined, Kingpin used to go after Spider-Man and Daredevil kind of ruined his plot for Spider-Man. So Kingpin wants him because of everything that he's ruined and then all that. They all have kind of alternative entrances into this, not Bullseye. And this is why, in my opinion, Bullseye is a more significant villain than Kingpin to Daredevil. However, the Kingpin is probably it's like Green Goblin and Doc Ock. Like, who is really his rival? And the answer is the Vulture to Spider-Man, right? um, because it was his first. And so but when it comes to Daredevil, in my opinion, Bullseye is a very important character as his setup nemesis. Now, on the other hand of this fight, you have Elektra, and it's been revealed that Elektra went to college with Matt, and they are pretty much uh, uh, in a relationship, right? Daredevil and Elektra, Matt and Elektra, right? Elektra being her actual name, it's Elektra Nachos, not Nachios, right? It's Greek. Um, but Elektra and Matt dated in college, and then Elektra dates Daredevil in the comics. They eventually get together, and they're pretty much a crime fighting duo, right? Um, so but Elektra works for, if you guys remember back when I covered my Marvel extended universe, right? Elektra eventually comes to work for the Hand, right? Which is that Japanese organization run by Nobu, right? I think that's his name, right? Um, is it Nobu or Nor? I think that's his name, right? Yeah, Nobu Yoshioka, who is it's this guy. If you guys have seen the Defend again, I did that. The Defender show or display capture, right? Display capture? Yeah. This guy. If you guys have seen the Daredevil TV show, he's also in the Defenders, if I'm not mistaken. Um Again, being a prominent um Daredevil character, Daredevil reoccurring Daredevil villain. Kagenobu Yoshioka, here he is back in feudal Japan. But again, he starts the Hand, and the Hand is a very big you know, organization that Daredevil fights. But we start off with this he's like pretty much it's a poster if you guys can't tell it because this is a crack in a wall and this is like a poster, right? Um and the person speaking is Bullseye, right? So here he is, and he's like, you've got to suffer first, though. Yeah, I'll break every bone in your body, grind your spine into powder, and make every nerve you've got scream in agony, and I'll make you pay. How many times has it been? How many times have I scrambled to the top of the heap just to have you bring me down and send me back down to the stinking cell? I hate you. You've hurt me, ruined me, my reputation, but that's not the worst of it nearly. While I sit and stew up, wait, and get sprung on, thoughts sit in my head and it burns. You saved my life. At this point in time in the comics, now, Bullseye has been developed as this prominent figure in Marvel Comics as pretty much as Daredevil's one of Daredevil's rivals, his nemesis, but also as someone that never misses. His name is Bullseye for a reason. He can throw anything, anywhere, and it'll always land where he wants it to and be deadly. Right? So typically, the what you'll see him carrying is a deck of cards. right? And he'll throw cards at you, and the cards move fast enough and hard enough that it'll cut your skin, pierce your skin. Um, he'll typically carry a deck of cards, right? Let's see. Let's see if I shift entered here. Um, here's him throwing that deck of cards. This is him from Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3. Um, but yeah, Bullseye again, prominent character. He was played by I think Winston Bethel in the TV show. Um, very prominent character. He also sometimes is seen with a gun, but very typically it's those deck of cards. Um, but he can kill with anything. He can throw a pencil, a whatever, but it's the deck of cards that's what you should be worried about when yeah, throws those deck of cards. Um, and so it's like he's kind of monologuing here. It wasn't enough to beat you and let me die down there in that subway. You had to pull me out of the track so I could hear every snicker, every jibe. They think I'm a has-been. They're wrong. Soon I'm gonna pay you back and be on top. The world's deadliest assassin, Bullseye, the man who killed Daredevil. Just wait, right? So right? Bullseye is renowned as one of the deadliest assassins, the world's deadliest assassins. Like, if you want someone dead, you don't hire like just anybody, right? If you really want someone dead, you hire Bullseye, right? Or Taskmaster, he's the other pretty big person that you hire. But it's pretty typical that you'll hire Bullseye, right? That's why if you guys remember, he showed up in Hitmonkey. Um, I don't know if you can find that one on YouTube, but he did show up for Hitmonkey. In our Hitmonkey. I think that file got corrupted when I changed my computer state. But if you guys are like for OG viewers, you guys might remember Hitmonkey. That was very early in. I think it was like episode 7 that I covered Hitmonkey in, or episode 8. Um, what is this, episode 38 or something like 33, 34, 35, something like that. So yeah. Here's Daredevil, pulling out what's his face, Bullseye from the sewer grate, and he saves his life, right? And so, you know, he's upset, and he's training. He's like, I'm not gonna be soft when we meet. You see, the warden's been real accommodating. Went and bought a special little gym just for me, right? And here he is, working out, and then he ends up, getting a visit from someone. He's like, Benjamin, we've got a visitor, and he's like, hey, Tom Snide, the TV host, Mr. Snide. And he's like, I won't beat around the bush, Mr. Poindexter, and he was often referred as Poindexter as like a code name, right? And he's like, I've gotten permission from your warden to interview you on national television, and let me just say, um, I'd be just tickled pink to and he's like, Benjamin, it would be excellent therapy for you to open up to. And he's like, I'm not interested, right? And immediately he gets his headache, right? He's splitting headache. He's like, ah, and he's like, guards. He's having one of his headaches. And like, yeah, yeah. The cuffs on bulls, right? Put the cuffs on bulls. And he's like, they're like put the cuffs on bulls, like bullseye. He's like, they're on. Hurry, it hurts. And he like puts on the cuffs because he's like in pain, right? He's like, yeah, yeah. Sort of funny, isn't it, Mister High and Mighty Assassin, crying like a little baby? Maybe they fixed that brain tumor of yours, but you still got headaches, right? So he used to have a brain tumor, they fixed it, but he gets like headaches. It means you need these pills. Old Harry's the guy that got some. Um, push the cap down clockwise or counterclockwise, no clockwise, right? And sorry, here it is. And then it's like the pill, give me the pill. He's like, yeah, yeah, yeah. He's like, you feel better now? He's like, just peachy. And he's like, you're a dead man here. He's like, yeah, yeah. You did this to me, Daredevil. You should have let me die. I can't even have a workout now without these headaches, right? But you can, right? You're probably working out right now in some private gym somewhere where you don't have headaches and you don't have to listen to snotty guards or uh, bleeding heart parole officers, probably practicing that crazy eclectic fighting style of yours, polishing every karate blow you used on me. Just keep practicing, Daredevil. You practice long and hard, and maybe you'll last an extra 10 minutes when I catch up with you, but you'll die the same. Just wait, right? And here he is out on the jail yard, and someone's walking up to him, and there's people around him. Obviously, he's like, "Whoa, man, that's." They're whispering, right? The little dotted lines mean they're whispering. He's like, "Whoa, man, that's crazy. That's Bullseye. Kill you. He'll kill you soon as you look at as soon as look at you, right?" He's like, he's like, "Hey, are you And he's like, are you, the guy's trying to stop the guy from coming up, and he's like, I'm gone. And he's like, and Bullseye comes up to him, he's like, I recognize you. You're the Punisher. You're in this joint for killing guys like me. And he's like, this your first day? He's like, it's my third, right? He's like, you've got a lot of enemies here, Punisher. 1 week tops, and you'll be leaving in a bag. And he's like, you could be, but you're staying. He's like, you've been on good behavior, waiting for the old boss, the Kingpin, to break you out. He's not. He's not going to. Word on the yard is that he's found a new assassin. Doesn't need you anymore. He's like, that rotten. Why are you telling me this? And he's like, chances are you'll do something dumb, get yourself killed. And he's like, I'd like that, right? And so I'm assuming, because I didn't read the previous issue, but the new assassin that the Kingpin has is Elektra. I'm assuming from that because Elektra is also a very big assassin, right? He's like broadcasting live from Rikers Island. This is a special edition of Good Evening New York. Tonight, Tom interviews one of the most notorious criminals in human history. And here's Bullseye in his getup, right? He's like, "Good evening, Poindexter." And he's like, "Bullseye." He's like, "What?" And he's like, "Call me Bullseye. Poindexter's just a name. I've used one of many." He's like, "Bulls." He's like, "So what's your real name?" He's like, "Bullseye." He's like, "I won't beat around the bush, Mr. Bullseye. You're a killer, a totally reprehensible felon whose monstrous crimes have caused untold misery." He's like, And he's like, "How do you feel about that?" He's like, I don't feel anything at all." And he starts getting that headache. He's like, right. So he's like, "What the heck's going on?" He's like, "Another headache. Push the cap down. Hurry. This time it's worse." And he's like, "Yeah." And he puts the pill in his mouth, right? And instead of swallowing, he holds it and spits it into the eye of one of the cops, blinding him. And so the cop's like, you lousy, and he pulls the gun out, right? And he shoots right at the belt, like the chain belt that Bullseye has, and it causes his chains to break. So from there, he ends up grabbing the gun. So the other guards will react pretty quickly. They're well trained, and so he ends up taking the chain that's around him and using that as well as the gun. And he ends up, or I'm sorry, the microphone. He uses the microphone, and he takes the microphone and pulls um the guy that was supposed to, Tom or whatever, that was interviewing, and he's like, "Drop your guns, open the door, and get inside, or snides a corpse," right? And it's like, do as he says. And so he takes a shot at the floor, and all the cops and all the people go in. He's like, "You boys just stay locked in the cell, and I'll." Oh man, I almost forgot. Harry, right? And he turns back to Harry, and he's like, "I made you a promise. Remember, Harry?" And he's like, "Bullseye, please." He's like, "Don't." And he's like, "Yep." And he shoots Harry for making fun of him. And he's like, "That was dumb fun, but dumb. Only 2 bullets left in the gun now, and no time to grab another one. I'll make it down and out to the yard." And he's like, and the cops going, he's like, "Freeze!" And um, he shoots back 2 bullets, the 2 lights. Now what do I do? Can't climb walls. And he's like, "That sound," and it's a helicopter. He's like, "It's all over, Bullseye. Let Snide go, drop the gun, right?" And so he's like, the cop's like, "I said drop the gun." And so Bullseye does exactly that. And he throws the gun at the cop, and it knocks him in the head, and he misfires, right? And he's like, you know, the guy's like, Lou, oh no, get up, gotta get up before no. And he picks up, Bullseye ends up throwing the microphone over the side of the helicopter and picking himself up, and he throws over the pilot, and he's like, "I'll take the copter across the river to Manhattan, and then I'll be free to hunt. And what about you, Daredevil? I bet you're coming home from wherever it is you work in your secret identity. Bet you're tired too. You want to relax and have a beer, listen to the radio. Maybe you're hearing about my escape right now. Maybe it doesn't scare you. Maybe nothing scares you. But worried, you got to be worried. So you come looking for me, Daredevil. Check every nook and cranny and watch the shadows, 'cause me, I'll be in one of them. Only you won't know it until I've got you. Just wait." Right? And here he is sneaking in. He's like, "But first, I got business to take care of. That assassin who had the nerve." Oh, okay, yeah. That assassin who had the nerve to take my place. So here I am, 4 hours later, hanging outside Slaughter's hideout, um, hoping for a lead, smelling sweaty Texas cigarette, thinking about how long it's been since I had a smoke. It's like, you want us to snuff who? Loco, th- Loco, that's what you are, Mr. Slaughter. The fucking way they speak, man. And he's like, "Watch your tongue, Tex, or I'll have it removed." He's like, "Our anatomy is as a freelance assassin operation still exists so long as the Kingpin tolerates it. He's the unquestioned ruler of the underworld, right? Big boss. He considers Bullseye to be dangerous and erratic and does not want him disrupting the order of things. Shoot, that don't mean we have to." And he's like, "It does." And he's like, "Okay, all right, but we sure as heck better get top rate for this one plus overtime. He's like, I got me a wife and kids to think about. And he's like, matter of fact, I got me two wives. And what the? He's like, the smoke's gone. And he turns around. He's like, howdy. It's Bullseye, right? And he's like, they're kill him, right? And of course, Bullseye being Bullseye, the two guys have like nunchucks or whatever, and they try to fight him. And you know, Bullseye being Bullseye grabs the nunchucks while they're flipping, and you know, twirls them and beats the crap out of them with it. And then pulls the takes the knife out of from someone and pulls it, and it's I guess it's old Butler or something. It's like, excellent, I see you've kept in shape. This one, the one of your doubt you the one you doubtlessly seek is a former ninja, a woman named Electra. The only lead I can give you is that she has been instructed to eliminate an attorney named Franklin Nelson. Do you want a cigar, right? And so here's Bullseye laughing, right? And he's monologuing, right? I just got the craziest idea. You see, no, I ought to start at the beginning. Old man Slaughter lends me a couple of his boys. Guess he's more scared of me than the Kingpin for now, anyway. The boys put together files on that Nelson um, shyster and his partner Matt Murdock. So I scroll myself away to this Fleabag motel to do some homework. Maybe it's just the booze, or maybe I'm just tired. But I'm really looking at hard at this photo of Murdoch. See, and I start to think about how much he looks like you, Daredevil. And I read about how tight you are with Murdoch, and I wonder if you guys are both the same guy. And then I read, get this, that Matt Murdock is blind. Wouldn't that be a kick? Daredevil, the blind superhero, like a crazy idea, right? And he has it, but he just doesn't have like the confirmation that it's him. And so we turn to Daredevil in court, right? And he's like, my client is one of those cruelest lies ever to, blah blah blah. And he's talking about how he's defending a woman who's a paraplegic, but in the crowd, right, you see this guy in red, right? He's like you in one way, Daredevil. He's a sap, right? Murdoch's speech wins the case, right? And he talks about how the woman wants to like have her kids back or love her kids or something. And here's Foggy being all like up there because he and Matt won their case, and he's like, I angle up to Nelson. And he slaps him back. He's like, nice work, counselor. He's like, thanks. And Murdoch takes off in a hurry like he's moonlighting or something, but it's his pudgy partner I'm interested in. He's my bait for Elektra. Wires Sloptikin did a nice job with that book I slapped on him. I can hear every word he says, so he ends up putting a tracer on the back of his shoulder. He's like, zippity do that, zippity yay, oh my, yo taxi, and he hears it off his like earpiece, and he's like, follow that cab, and he's like, the guy's like, I'm off duty, and he's like, you hear me, Jack? That's OFF, and then he throws the card through his neck, cutting him and kills him, right? And he takes the cab and follows Elektra, right? And of course, Elektra's in the cab, right? Or he follows Foggy, and Elektra's in the cab, and he's like, I've been hired to kill you, Nelson. And he's like, it's her. It's got to be Elektra. And he's like, be silent, be calm. You will feel no pain, right? And they pass through this place, and they drop him off. He's like, why are you doing this? And he's like, please explain why. I don't even know you. And he's like, yes, I do. I've seen you before. And he's like, I don't understand any of this. Why are you? And she turns. She immediately notices something. He's like, get out of here. She angles herself by the car. Also, clickbait. We're going to hold this for a minute just so I can get a good thumbnail, even though I already have one. Thanks, Snoop. But just in case. Good thumbnail. Anyway, there's Bullseye with what looks to be like a freaking like Luger. Is that what that's called? The Luger gun? Yeah. It's like a freaking World War II, yeah, or like freaking World War II gun, bro. What the hell is it? Look at this goofy ass thing. Um, yeah. So anyway, he's pulling up with with like whatever that is. It looks like you ever watch Star Wars? It looks like Han Solo's pistol. He pulls up in that and points it at Elektra, and Elektra, being a master assassin, hits like a backflip and then kicks Bullseye in the face and smacks the gun out of his hand. And so she pulls out her size and hits him with the like back end of it, not the pointy part, but the like grip of it, and she punches him across the face, and she goes to kick him, and he slides down off the car, right? And Elektra ends up like turning and kicking him again and knocking him on the ground. And he's like, crime me, the lady's good, right? And he's like, Slaughter said she's been trained as a ninja. She'll probably use the darkness, maybe even sneak up behind me. And that's when the size kind of click, and Bullseye 180 punches her in the face, and then knees her like her I guess this is her chin. And Elektra does get a good cut in across the face, and then when Elektra goes and dives, she misses, and the sides go into the back of the car, right? So Bullseye takes the opportunity to like kick her across the face, and then takes one of her sides, right? Um, from there, Elektra's fighting him off hand to hand, and what ends up happening is Bullseye punches her like down into the ground, and he's on his knees or she's on her knees, and he's on like one knee and trying to get back up. He's like, put up pretty good fight, Toots. You're pretty good, but me, I'm magic. And he takes that card and throws it across her and hits her in the neck, right? And it like she's bleeding from her neck, right? She's down and she's still alive and responsive, but she's been hit. And he's like, and for my next trick, right? And this is where things get crazy, right? Because if you remember, Elektra was still Matthew's, although they've had fights and although she's assassin and Matthew and her clash, they've dated, they've been together, they're in a relationship. Bam! He takes that sai and stabs her across the stomach, right? And now she's bleeding from her neck and her stomach, right? And just blood going everywhere, and she's trying to crawl away, and she does, and she manages to fall, and she makes it to Matt's house, and all the people are watching her like, "What? Look at that!" And she's like, "Matt," and she looks up, and Matt looks down and holds her, and he's holding her in her arms as she dies, right? She breathes her last breath, and he tries to get her to to a hospital, and here is Bullseye, right? You can tell because of the mask here at the mask at the bottom, right? You can tell it, and he's lighting up a cigar, right? And she's at the table, and he's like, um, contusions on the face and a body, broken jaw, laceration of the throat, heart pierced by something metal, knife more than likely. Do you know her? He's like, yeah, her name was Electra Nachios. If you guys want the spelling of it, it's here. I don't know how to zoom in on this. Oh, I can zoom in on this. Electra Nachios. There it is. Um, yeah. Um, and then he's like, she's bleeding out, and he's looking down at her. He's like, hey, I haven't seen you around here before. And he's like, um, I'm new, got McCaffrey's old job. Then it happens. Murdoch jumps like a stock pig just when he hears me speak, like he recognizes my voice. Suddenly that crazy idea about I got suddenly that crazy idea I got about you, you being him doesn't seem so crazy. He's like, McCaffrey quit. He's like, he won't be back. And they're like, too bad, nice guy, right? And he's like, Matt, I think we should be going, Matt. And then the two of them head off. It's Foggy as well, I think, is there. Um, and he this guy grabs a knife, and Matt kind of pulls out his walking stick, right? And he's like, I'm running out there, think before you can track me, before you can make excuses to protect your precious secret identity. Got news for you, Matty boy, it's blown, right? And so he runs to the Kingpin, right? And he's like, Daredevil is Matt Murdock, and he's like, the blind attorney, and he's like, well, you're not well, Bullseye. He's like, I'm fine, Kingpin. Fine, fit as a fiddle. Just think about how much grief Old Hornhead has caused you. He's like, he's cost me much. Only recently in um he thwarted an operation of tremendous potential. He stopped me from expanding my control over the city's government. He's a candy he's a canny opponent, but blind. Like, hear me out. When he was just a kid, Murdoch was struck across the eyes and blinded by radioactive isotope. It's all in the papers. But it's the medical report where it gets interesting. The docs noticed unusual brain activity and it seemed to overly sensitive to sound and swell. Then the symptoms went away and the docs shrugged their shoulders and sent him home. Now just suppose he was faking his recovery. Suppose that radiation made him smell and taste and hear better than anyone on the earth. On anyone on earth. Suppose he's like, you can stop now. He's like, but there's more. His father, and he's like, that's just the most preposterous story I've ever heard, and a pathetic ploy on your part to convince me to reinstate you as my chief assassin. Bring me Daredevil's body, and we'll do business, right? So punish or Kingpin is willing to, because he had Elektra as his chief assassin, but he's willing to reinstate Bullseye as his chief assassin if he brings him back the body of Daredevil, and that's exactly what he does. Sorry, this is a really tight image, but this is what it looked like on the comics. So if you want to look, this was the strip that I got. But but he's walking out on the street and he's like, hey, I was gonna do that anyway. It's midnight when I hit your brownstone nice joint, and there he goes. He sneaks into Daredevil's or Matt's apartment with a gun, right? And he's looking around. And he's like the Fourth Amendment, blah blah blah. And he's talking, Matt's talking about his things, and Bullseye goes up, right? He goes up the stairs and he sees this guy, and he's like prior review by neutral and detached magistrate, right? And he pulls out the gun, and then he's like, no, and he realizes it's Daredevil, the bright red, and he's like, it can't be. I was so sure, and he was partially he was actually on it. He almost had him there, but Daredevil set up like this dummy to protect his identity because he knew they would be coming after him. He's like, you set me up. That's it. Somehow you rigged that suit in the morgue with your buddy Murdoch somehow, and like a dummy, I fell for it. This judicial role, and then he's like, so you aren't Matt Murdock, but I'll still get to you. But I can't do it here. You probably know this place like the back of your hand. Come on, DD, follow me outside. Got a surprise for you. And the two of them are outside, and he pulls out Elektra's size, right? And then I'd be using your old lady's weapons against your billy clubs, right? And so he throws one of his billy clubs, and then he kind of flings over and kicks him, but he blocks with the size, and so Daredevil gets a punch across the face, and then tackles him down, right? He tackles him, and they crash down a skylight, and one of the blades, I guess, kind of pierces Daredevil's like side, and Daredevil punches the side of Bullseye, and then Bullseye kicks him out of the window, and Bullseye with the two sides kind of watches as Daredevil falls down onto city train tracks, right? Um, the subway. Um, and so down drops Bullseye onto the tracks with Daredevil, and Daredevil kicks him, but the train is coming, right? And so the two of them slip off to the sides of the train, and then they fight on top. And that's when Bullseye kind of launches himself at Daredevil, and then Daredevil and the two fall off the side of the train, right? And they fall onto a wire, right? Like a where you would like the wire where you would hang clothes to dry, right? And Daredevil catches on with his hands, and the size that Bullseye has is what he uses to hang on. And Daredevil, being an acrobat, stands like firmly on the wire. And so Bullseye tries to do the same, but he slips and falls. And Daredevil, using like the back of his knee, right, hangs onto the wire and catches Bullseye. And he's like, no. And he's pissed. Bullseye's upset. Because here he is saving Bullseye's life again, right? Bullseye should be dead to rights there, falling off the top of a building, right? And Daredevil's here holding him down and saving him. He's like, no. And he's like, you won't save me? Not like before. Kill you. I'll kill. And he's like, you'll kill no one ever again. And Daredevil drops him and kills him. He falls, bam, dead. But don't bet on it, right? By now the Kingpin has been told about what happened. He's probably sure, just like everybody else, is that I'm out of action for good. And here's Kingpin with his files, burning the file on Bullseye, and he's like probably already started looking for a new hitman. He'll never need he'll never need one without me and without Elektra. Yeah, that's right. I almost forgot. Maybe I didn't get you this time, Daredevil, but I got her, didn't I? I got her good. I wish that hurt you. I wish she'd been yours so that you'd spend long lonely nights staring at the ceiling thinking about her. But you can't win them all. Meanwhile, there's your buddy Murdoch who helped you beat me. How does he feel? Right? He's like, you just got lucky that all I could have. That you just got lucky. That's all. I could have beat you. I almost did. Next time I will. Oh sure, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking there won't be a next time. You're wrong, Daredevil. Dead wrong. Prison couldn't stop me, and neither can this prison you've made out of my body. My spine shattered. I can't feel my arms or legs. I can't even talk. But man, can I hate. I hate you even more than ever. And that'll be enough. No matter how many months and years it takes, I'll I'll I'm gonna I'll put myself back together and then come for you again. Just wait. And that's pretty much the end of that issue, right? And so, obviously I should have probably gone deeper into it. Matt after this goes on a pretty big rage, right? He's upset because Elektra's dead, and he's upset because Elektra's dead, and he ends up like believing that Elektra's still alive, right? He has like cold sweats at night, and he dreams that Elektra's still alive, and so he ends up going out and he ends up going out and beating the crap out of anyone he thinks he can beat up. But then he goes out on the street or back into the cemetery to dig up Elektra's grave with Foggy, um, and he holds her and he's like, she's dead, and then following that ends up being a couple runs where Daredevil's body ends up getting like blasted or whatnot by the Punisher. The Punisher ends up hitting him and claiming to have killed him. Um, I'm assuming eventually, just like he does, Bullseye becomes the number one assassin for the Kingpin and you know whatnot. But this run with Frank Miller, this Daredevil run, I highly recommend Frank Miller's runs. If you liked this style of comic, right? Um, they only get better. Daredevil has such iconic villains with the Kingpin and with the Punisher and Bullseye and Elektra, and there's so many other villains there that like those are his main ones, right? But there's so many other villains. He fights the Hand or Nobu, the Hand and Nobu and whatnot. Um, and Madame Gao, if I'm not mistaken, is also another big villain. He ends up fighting so many of them, and the Hand really is a pest on his backside. Um, so if you guys are interested in peak Daredevil, I highly recommend Frank Miller's run. Um, However, if you can't find or can't read Frank Miller's run back in the 80s, um, when did this come out? I think this came out in the late 90s, early 2000s with John Romita Jr. I can look that up for you real quick. But um let's see. Um Marvel Unlimited app, highly recommend. But yeah, it came out issue 2 came out in November of 1993. So when did issue 1 come out? October 1st of 1993. Did I write that down? I did not. But yeah. Um like I mentioned before, in what I did cover his origin, there are different iterations of his origin, and this is kind of the one that a lot of people know. Um, and this is right after the end of that 300 issue run that went on from like, or I think it was written at the same time. But this one was also written by Frank Miller, but he had the help of another big comic writer, John Romita Jr. And if I'm not mistaken, John Romita Jr. is still writing comics, and he's a pretty big figurehead in comics. Um, or is it John Romita Sr.? One of those two guys were writing comics. Um, Anyway, I'm pretty sure one of them helped write Miles Morales, um, and like other Spider-Man stuff. But John Romita Jr. and Frank Miller ended up redoing the Daredevil origin story, which is more aligned to the MCU one. And so here he is, Hell's Kitchen, and he's sitting down, looking at people through the fire escape, right? And he's like, it's like you have to be sneaky if you don't want to get yelled at. And Matt is very sneaky, right? The next morning, Officer Lebowski is doing what he always does, and he's talking to the kids, saying that they can't open up the fire hydrant because they need its public property. And Matt runs and takes his police baton and skateboards out and beats the cop. The cop's out of breath, and Matt lived for that rush, and he ended up taking it up to his room, and then later on in the day hiding it in his dad's like gym locker room, right? And when he gets back home, Matt heads home and hopes that dad won't be sad again. But there he is with an old photograph again. He never says who she was, right? And he always says Maggie. Maggie assuming to be his mother. You never figure out who Maggie is, or who his mother is, but we're assuming that it's Maggie because of this. Like, I'm sorry, Maggie. And he's like, Dad, come on, Dad, let's get you up to bed. He's like, right, son, you're a good boy, Matt. A good boy. God bless you, and I'm sorry, and I'm a slob, and I'm sorry. And he's like, it's all right, Dad. Let's just get you to bed, right? And then he goes to the gym the next time. It's a different kind of rough night for Jack Murdock. And he's like, "Wise up, Murdock. Slade doesn't get tired easily." And he's like, and I'm afraid he's starting to enjoy himself. And Slade, before, if you knew he was like that scrawny guy, they rewrote him as this big buff dude. And he's like, let him. And he's like, he's like, and I'm he doesn't get tired. He doesn't get tired easily, and I'm starting to enjoy it. He's like, let him. He's like, the fixer trying to do you a favor, dork. Just a regular job ain't too a regular job ain't so easy to come by these days. He's like, I won't. He's like, you will. You'll work for the neighborhood. You'll work the neighborhood for me. Collect on bad debts, or you'll die. He's like, so kill me. I won't work for the mob. And he's like, I wasn't finished, Murdoch. You'll collect unpaid protection money, or you'll die. And and so will your bright-eyed little boy Matt. And he's like, these are there are times when Jack Murdoch doesn't hate himself, only in the ring, only in the heat of combat when his fists are sure and his legs are strong and he feels like himself again, and he forgets the way he spends his days. He's like only in the heat of it when he's a warrior, right? Not a mob enforcer. When he's a champion, not a thug, right? And he's like, but it keeps food on the table and it keeps Matt fed and buys Matt shoes, right? And it kind of talks about that whole time when Matt or when Battle and Jack couldn't find that time to feed Matt or give Matt what he needed for school. And so um he comes home one night and he's like, Matt, promise me, son. Um, and he's like, but I can't study all the time, Dad. And the guys, they call me like names at school, and it makes me really mad. And he's like, it makes me want to sock them, and I, don't see why I shouldn't. He's like, you'd have socked them good. He's like, yeah, I would have. And look where my fists have gotten me. You owe it to your mother, Matt. You've got to be something special. You've got to be nothing like me. You promised me, son, right? And it's never actively stated that what his mother's name is or who his mother is. Um, Matt promises, but a few weeks later on, the kind of day when New York heat brings raised voices and clenched fists, Matt Murdock proves himself to be his father's son. He's like, Dad, I finally showed that kid Barkley. He took a poke at me, and I poked right back, and he's kind of like dusty or whatnot. He's like, he just sat down and looked dumb, and it was great. And he's like, damn it, Matt, damn it. And he kind of backhands him, slaps the crap out of him. He's like, then Dad is all tears and regrets, and Matt is running from their home um through the city directionless and lost. He hit me. The thought is so big and crazy. Dad hit me. It was wrong. Dad was wrong. And even if Dad can be wrong, then anybody can do bad things. Anybody at all. The only way to stop people from being bad is to make rules and laws. Somewhere in long and lonely night, the boy's course is set, right? He will study the rules and he'll study the law, right? And that's what inspires him to become a lawyer, right? And it's a costly choice every night, every weekend. Matt has the urge to fight, to leave his little room and answer those taunts of the other kids, right? The worst of it is the nickname they gave him. He's like, "Hey, Daredevil, come out, Daredevil," right? And recess becomes purgatory, but Matt doesn't fight. He obeys the rules, and they still chant, right? And they beat him up, and you could have fought back, but you're such a weenie, right? And his favorite place is the gym at Fogwell's, right? And he starts training, he hits the sack, and here's this guy, right? Now, this guy is kind of watching over him, right? Matt, unnoticed by Matt, someone observes him wait, a shadow, unmoving, silently feeling the boy's fury and waiting for the day that the boy will meet his destiny, right? And it's a perfect day, one Matt will never forget. The last he will ever see. A helpless blind man carrying a truck, a helpless blind man, a carrying truck, a decision made faster than thought. The bravest thing I ever saw, but it hit his face. And my God, is that stuff in his eyes? Is it radioactive? And yes, right. And he's rushed to the hospital, right? And he's like, yes, it courses through his blood. It changes him. His blood, it burns. It gushes through his high power hose and slams against the base of his skull. It hurts. Everything hurts. He doesn't know where he is. Um, Sandpaper scrapes the skin every time he moves and moves. No, not sandpaper sheets, starch sheets, and the chemical smells disinfectant. Hospital. He thinks I'm in a hospital. People come and go, smelling like bathtubs full of sweat and eaten and like eating food and like Italian sauces and half digested eggs. They stab him with needles and they fill him full with drugs, but drugs don't fool him. He knows they cut his face, everything hurts. All he wants to do is die. But he doesn't die. He has to he doesn't die, so he has to make do. After a while, he somehow shuts it off. What's happened to him, what has become, like dad doesn't understand. Nobody understands except the woman. Except the woman, the stranger who comes. She soothes him. She calls these crazy senses a blessing and makes him promise to keep them a secret even from dad. She kisses his forehead and her lips are soft and loving, and something hard dangles from her neck. It's a cross made of gold. She leaves taking with her the with her mystery with she leaves taking her mystery with her, but he feels how calmer and now stronger. He'll survive this. He'll make it through this. Um, and weeks later, Matt listens to a pair of alley clats. Yeah, but none of this drowning out the voices behind him. He's like a tragedy, Mr. Murdoch. You have our deepest sympathies, but you must understand that our corporation considers itself no way accountable. It was your junk that hit my boy Shyster. He's like, let's talk straight, Murdoch. If you want to talk to the press, make any complaints against us, we'll revere your own involvement with the fixer. Your boy's blind, nothing can change that. Do you want him to be the son of a convict as well? And weeks goes by, everybody pities Matt, everybody wants to help him cross the street, but there's no pity in the man who trails him, right? No pity, no mercy, only cold, clear purpose, and now the time has come to see what Matt Murdock is made of. That night in the gym, it used to be Matt's favorite place, but now it's filled with cries and frustration and tearful fury. Um, and now and low sobs that speak of defeat. He can't see, he's useless. And the guy talks to him. He's like, "Quit feeling for yourself and get up." Who? And the guy calls himself Stick. So that right there, that guy that was watching him, that's Stick, right? Stick has also had his own stories about him, but the more common one is that Stick is also blind. And so Stick uses his blind technique, and Stick works for someone, right? Someone big, and Stick works for this group of people that defend the world from the hand, right? Um, and it's very similar to the people of um, yeah. He fights against the hand, and part of it is to like defend the entrance of Kunlun, which is where Iron Fist is from. And so he wants Daredevil to kind of join his army, or young Matt, right? And so he trains him, right? And he tells him, he's like, you'll train here every spare hour you have. If you're good enough, I'll make you a warrior. I'm not saying your chances are good. You're undisciplined, indulgent, emotional, but I'm taking a chance with you because I need all the help I can get. He's like, what kind of help? No questions. Hold your hands out and concentrate. Feel the air. He's like, but there's no wind. He's like, shut up and concentrate. The air's filling this room. One wall's closer than the other. Do you feel it? He's like, now feel, now the other wall, feel it, concentrate. He's like, but there's nothing there. And he's like, do you feel this? And he backhands him and, pulls out the cane. He's like, that just hurt. And he smacks him again. And he's like, okay, knock it off. Matt swings his cane and strikes nothing. And then again, and then the guy, Stick clunks him in the head with his stick. And he's like, and a whisper move in a shape formed by the air. And when Stick goes to hit him again, he blocks it with his cane. And he's like, how'd I do that? And he's like, so you're out of kindergarten, but don't get cocky, right? And he gives him a bow and arrow, and he's like, creak of wood wire, no catgut stretched. That's a bow you're holding. And he's like, what the heck are a couple of blind guys supposed to do with a bow? And he's like, this, and he shoots and he hits the target, right? He's like, now your turn. Turn and find the target, smell it, feel its shape, and concentrate. And he misses. He hits a window. He's like, no good. Do it again. He's like, I did it. Um, I could feel, I could feel it. I can feel everything. And he's like, oh, he's like, anybody can do it once, do it again. And he shoots it and breaks it again, right? I guess I didn't put the panel where he does do it. But he goes home and he's exhausted, right? Because he goes home to study law, and he's already like tired from training with Stick, and then going to studying and going to school, right? And he's like, night after night, Jack Murdock finds his son asleep and exhausted. A fine boy, he thinks he's studying like a demon, and he's right. But Matt, studies go far beyond history and geography and law into the realm of near magic, and Stick waits and hopes. The nights are the best when Matt wakes before dawn, and as always, Stick is there, and they dance unseen, right? Here they are running through the night, right, with the moon, and here they are, running up top buildings. And we turn to Central Park, right? A spring morning. Jack Murdoch jogs. A fighter has to keep in shape. A fighter he feels like a fighter again. 6 victories in a row. Six knockouts. At his age, it's impossible, but there it is. And now he's set for a bout at Madison Square Garden. So right when we get this news, Matt's in college studying, and battling or he's about to go into college, or he's going to college, and battling Jack here, right, is about he's taking his fight, and he's big. He's a big dude, right, and he's been raised, and he's got a new fight coming up in Madison Square Garden. And he's feeling young again. Life is good again. And best of all, he hasn't gotten any order. He's gotten orders from the fixer in months, right? And here comes a car, and he's like, "You're pushing yourself too hard, Murdoch. You're not a young man anymore." And he's like, "I haven't been doing so bad, fixer." And he's like, "Oh, come on now. Are you so thick? You thought you earned those knockouts? What do you think they call me the fixer for, right? You're set up, old man. Um I've made you flavor of the month in the boxing world, and you're gonna make me a bundle of money." He's like, "When you throw tomorrow's fight, no arguments, Murdoch. The usual threats apply, right?" Next night, it's MSG, um, round four, and he's like, "This is it, Murdoch. Just give him an opening and fall down like you should. Think about that boy of yours." And he's like, "That's just what I'm thinking about, you bum. I'm thinking about my thinking I'm thinking my boy's out there in the audience, and I'm thinking about how I told him one thing worth a damn. I told him to never give up. It's time I showed him his dad may be a loser, but he's not a quitter, right?" And lights go on. They're taking pictures and whatnot, and back and forth with him, and Battling Jack smacks him across the face, and it's counted 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. He's out. Battling Murdoch wins, right? Later that night, Jack exits the stadium, strangely calm, ready for what's to come, right? And he's like, "I know you're there, get it over with." And there's Slade. They're gonna take their time until the sounds are wet and pulpy thing that was once a man sags, um not feeling it, right? Murdoch still stares unconscious beyond caring. At the end though, the blood toothless at the end though, through the blood, toothless, he throws the fixer a young man's grin, and the end it's a mercy, right? He puts the gun into his face is pretty deformed, but he puts it into his mouth and then fires, killing him, and that's the end of the comic. And it kind of rewrites his origin, but also his father's death. You get more of a glimpse of how his father died. You get a glimpse into Matt's life and how he trained to become Daredevil, and how Stick was an important figure of his life. Um, yeah, Daredevil's a really pivotal character in Marvel. He ends up taking Captain America's side during Civil War because he has to protect his identity, and it's just is he is an important figure in Marvel. He's the only character, again, like I mentioned when I first started talking, the only character to canonically never die, right? Like this guy has never died in comics. He's faked his death, but he's never actually been killed. He's been around since the 60s. Um, but yeah, that was pretty much the end of Daredevil. He is by far one of my favorite characters in all the comics, and I can't do him justice with this. All I did was cover his debut, his origin, and the death of Elektra. But there's so many other important comics with him. Um, if you guys want more Daredevil, you know where to vote. It's that top link. That's for any other topics or any other characters that you want to see from me. I have a huge list of characters that you guys have requested from me that I promise I'll get to. The second link is my email. It's the Marvel Buddies email. If you guys want to send me a message, I will respond there. It's typically for if you guys have comic recommendations, or if you guys want to see the podcast improve or anything like that. It'd be preferable if you guys sent me an email. You guys don't have to be formal. I don't care. I'm not a college professor. And then the last one is my new day form. So if you guys aren't in my Discord, or if you guys haven't seen, I do a I do plan on doubling down on the Marvel Buddies podcast. I want to give you 2 episodes a week. One as a fallback in case I can't ever do it on Monday and I have to do it again like I did today. But two, I want to give you guys more content. I want to be able to help grow and I want to become affiliated and you guys probably want more Marvel content. So it only benefits everybody. So I will send out I sent out a form and it's the link is there and I'll keep posting it every week until I get a good day. Um I want to start posting more episodes by the start of November. Um Come the beginning of November, I want to start shifting to 2 episodes a week. So you guys have from now until November to fill out that form. All it is 2 questions asking what day and what time you guys would prefer to see me stream. Um, Once I gather the answers, the best time and the best date, I will give you guys the day. I'll let you know what day one, what time one, and I will stream at them at that time and date. But this has been Daredevil. For those of you that don't know, I'm saying this at the end, and I'll give you a countdown for you guys to leave. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. He has debuted in She-Hulk at the end of it, and he's same character Charlie Cox played it. He was in Spider-Man No Way Home, or yeah, No Way Home, the blind lawyer. I'm a really good lawyer. Um, he debuts in She-Hulk wearing that iconic, not the red outfit, but the yellow and see if I can get to it. Just a random one. The yellow and red. This is the outfit he's wearing, and they end up She-Hulk ends up calling him ketchup and mustard because of that. But yeah, that's been this week of Daredevil of Marvel Buddies. I covered Daredevil. I promise to give you for this month some horror characters. Now I want to do some horror because number one, we've just gotten that Werewolf by Night little teaser thing, and I've seen it. It's fantastic. I recommend all of you guys to go ahead and watch that. It is fantastic. But also too, um, there are a lot more characters than just Jack. If you guys remember when I did my Darkhold episode, yeah, I talked about Jack Russell and Werewolf by Night, and you guys definitely can find that in the YouTube. That one I know for sure is there. Thank you, Snoopy, for making the thumbnail, part 1 and part 2. But yeah, if you guys want to see more Daredevil content, I don't mind giving you a revisit on this character and just picking like 3 comics or an event with him and talking about it. He has some really good events. I recommend the Back in Black one where he gets that black outfit, which you guys will probably be seeing in the Echo TV show. Um, there's some good ones. I can give you guys some rundowns on Daredevil. Um, that original run by Frank Miller is really good. Um, let's see. The 2019 comic is actually pretty good. Back in Black, the Devil of San Francisco, where he moves to LA or San Fran and ends up doing the same thing but over on the West Coast. Um, Daredevil from 2011, which was written by Mark Waid and Paulo Rivera, is actually pretty good. They start like a new volume of Daredevil. Um, he gets, if you guys are interested in that old school Daredevil like this, he gets his iconic red outfit in Daredevil issue number 7. So this is number 1, so you just read 6 more issues and then he gets that red. He's in a couple Spider-Man comics, especially Amazing Spider-Man number 50. That's the one where um Kingpin, you kind of see Kingpin come into the fray as a Spider-Man villain. That's I think when Kingpin debuts. Um, and he's in that season of Spider-Man comic. And then there's the first appearance of Bullseye, which is Daredevil issue number 131. The first issue of Elektra, or first appearance of Elektra, Daredevil issue number 168. The death of Elektra, which we covered here in number 181. And then 277 is when Kingpin finds out about Daredevil. he finds out that Daredevil's Matt Murdock. That's a really good one because Daredevil just rips it into him. He's like, I know who you are now. Um, this comic, the last one, is called The Man Without Fear. I just had it. This one, The Man Without Fear. That's a good one. It's actually pretty new, 1993. There's the year one where it's him in his yellow outfit, redone by Jeff Loeb, and Brian Michael Bendis and Alex Malev ended up writing a Daredevil comic in 1998. That one's pretty good because that's some of the stuff I used in that was in the Kingpin comic that I covered when I covered the Kingpin. You guys should go back and watch that. That's on the YouTubes. I did not link the YouTube. I will get you that link here. Give me a second. Um, Here it is. There's the Marvel Buddies YouTube link if you guys want to go back and watch that. Um, and then once Brian Michael Bendis left, and I think he started working on Miles Morales, Ed Brubaker took over. I love Ed Brubaker. I'm pretty sure Ed Brubaker wrote the Winter Soldier comic. If you guys remember from the MCU, is like Bucky. Who the hell's Bucky? Ed Brubaker wrote that. I don't think there's other than probably Stan Lee and a couple other guys. Ed Brubaker is on top. Frank Miller, John Romita Jr., Ed Brubaker, and I would say Chris Claremont for X-Men, and Stan Lee obviously, and Jack Kirby. Top comic book writers there. Those are the kind of guys you want to look for when you're reading comics. Those are my recommendations. There's other big comic writers, um, you know, but yeah, that's Daredevil. That's my recommendation with Daredevil. If you guys want to see, we'll just flip up to that Electro page. We'll just flip up to this. If you guys want to see any more Daredevil content, if you guys want to see any more of anything, I highly recommend you guys vote on the character. That's the first link. Again, email me with any questions, comments, concerns, recommendations, comic book questions, like where to pick up comics, what to read, where to do. You guys can email me at marvelousmarvelbuddies@gmail.com. That's the email. The New Day form is linked as well if you guys want to go and vote on my like what extra day I should vote for you guys so I can give you that double content. And the YouTube channel is linked at the bottom so you can go back and revisit any other characters that I have. But that's been Daredevil this weekend. I will come back with you on Monday with a new character. Um, Hopefully we can get into. I do want to finish up the Defenders because I covered Jessica Jones, I covered Luke Cage, and then did I cover Luke Cage? Did I cover who did I cover? I know I covered Iron Fist. I covered Iron Fist. I covered Jessica Jones. I covered Daredevil. We still have Elektra, Purple Man, Luke Cage, um, Misty Knight, a couple other characters there to cover. But of that core Defenders, the last one is Luke Cage, Power Man. So I will definitely go back and cover him next, and then I will be sure to give you guys um some more of your recommendations, as well as I have a list of characters that you guys might find enjoyable. But again, link at the top corner for you guys to vote on the character. But I'll see you guys next week.